Welcome to Talking Live. I am so happy to see you again. And we have Amy Newmark back with us. She has a new book. It's hot off the press, and this is so appropriate for right now. It is called Chicken Soup for the Soul, and it's Making Me Time. And the last time I think, Amy, I had you on the show, because you're a friend of the show, it was about your Empowered Women series, correct?
Yes, it was. It was. And I think me time is another way that you can empower yourself because you need to seize control of your life and create that special time for yourself because isn't self-care really the best way you can empower yourself?
It is so true. I think they are so closely aligned. And I just want to tell everybody out there, I am so positive you have heard of the series of Chicken Soup for the Soul, but it's really impressive because Amy is not only the author, publisher, and editor in chief of this very popular series of books, but really there has been over 100 million book sales of this particular series. There are more than 250 titles, and you also have a podcast by the same name.
I do, and we do a lot of different things, all revolving around storytelling because isn't that really the way that people pass on wisdom and advice to each other? It's always through storytelling. And so we feel that's the best way to help people, other, of course, than going to their therapist or their psychiatrist, et cetera. But, just for your everyday support system, reading stories from other people.
I find that is so true. And you know that I also work as a therapist, and I find the power of stories is so huge in terms of people being able to identify with the person in the story or the message in the story. And when I was reading your introduction, Amy, last night, it brought me back to the beginning of the pandemic. And of course, the pandemic has created really new challenges for us when it comes to self-care, but you write about how it really reset our priorities and what matters and walking around and appreciating nature. And it brought me back to the beginning of the pandemic. What got you to choose this topic?
So I actually had put this on our schedule long before the pandemic. And then it just turned out to be incredibly relevant because everybody is really engaging in a lot of introspection and analyzing what works and what doesn't work in their lives. And there was a survey from Zulily, which is a website that a lot of moms buy from. They did a survey before Valentine's Day asking, what is your number one wish for a gift for Valentine's Day? And 55% of the women said me time, which doesn't really cost anything, right? They wanted their husbands to give them me time. And I think that would have been the case even without the pandemic, but the need for me time has been even more magnified. But when we came into the pandemic, I definitely found myself, as I described in the introduction, focusing so much more on what makes for quality of life. And that's when my husband and I decided we were going to plant more flowers than we had ever planted before, just for us, right? And we made this really big commitment to use the hot tub in the backyard and to appreciate nature. We have two humongous trees. They're called Tulip poplar trees. And I've owned this house for something like 25 years. And these humongous trees, I never knew what they were. And I never knew that in the spring, they make these gigantic yellow tulips. It's called a tulip poplar because it looks like it's covered with thousands of tulips. Do you know, we never even knew we had these two trees until we were forced to stay home and appreciate what was, right in front of our faces. It's been amazing. We've managed to schedule a lot of real quality me time and also we time, which by the way is another thing we found when we put together this title, is that a lot of people talked about the need to also create we time, quality we time with a friend or a partner or a child. But that was really important to people also. It's just basically seizing control of your calendar and creating those really valuable moments.
Really, I think one has to be very deliberate with showing up for oneself and creating boundaries. How did you find the stories for this book? What stories resonated with you, and how did they get chosen to empower your audience, your loyal audience?
We had thousands of stories submitted. People go to our website, chickensoup.com, and they see what we're working on, and then they can submit their stories over the internet. And the stories I found very instructive, because that's the whole point of putting 101 different stories from different, from 101 different people in our books, because then you see what worked for 101 different people out there so that you could find something that works for yourself. And I picked up some great tips from it. For example, one woman, Christine, she actually is the mother of our associate publisher. She sells Tupperware. So years ago, when she was selling Tupperware, I guess they had some kind of common calendar so everybody could see her calendar. So her calendar would just get filled in with sales meetings all day long. And she was going crazy, and she wasn't spending enough time with her 3 daughters. And her boss and mentor said to her, "Oh, I know what your problem is. You didn't put any lily pads on your calendar." And Christine said, "What are lily pads?" And her boss said, "Well, you make a fake appointment and you put it on your calendar 3 times a week, 5 times a week. And those are like you're a little frog and you're jumping onto that lily pad to have your moment of rest and to sit in the sun and not be bothered. So put those lily pads on your calendar, an hour Tuesday afternoon, an hour Thursday morning, whenever it is. And that's your rest time to just regroup." And I thought, what a brilliant concept. And I really got that visual of that lily pad. So that was an example of a wonderful idea. I just don't know if I could get away with putting a fake appointment on my calendar because my assistant's going to be like, "Who's this person?" And I'm going to be,
"Who's lily pad?"
Yeah. And then my assistant's going to be like, "You never leave your house." And I'm going to have to come up with some, "Oh, it's the personal trainer. I'm doing an extra session." I don't know what I'll have to do, but it's a really good idea to create those moments. And other people said what they learned to do was not say, "I'll do my to-do list and then I'll do my me time." Just stick the me time at the top of the to-do list, because honestly, it's more important than vacuuming the house. Unless vacuuming the house is your me time, your time to meditate and be contemplative and not hear your children speaking to you. Everybody's form of me time is different.
That's so true. And what I love about the stories, there was one powerful story where a woman was complaining to her husband all of the time, and he was really getting sick of it. And so, to have a place to air her complaints, she wrote in a journal. And after writing in the journal, which she found very helpful, she realized how petty some of her complaints were. But this act of just switching it up where she shared her complaints really helped her relationship and helped her to observe herself differently. I love the idea of just a small step really making a huge difference in someone's life.
That's the thing about reading 101 stories. You could just pick up one little tip and try that one little tip.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them really are life-changing. Like there were several stories from women who were just so busy, even single moms or moms where the husband was around, but either way, they were so incredibly busy and just acting like martyrs, And then somehow they realized, wait, I've never told anybody I actually need the help. And so these moms went and said to their kids, "I am drowning in stuff to do. I really need you guys to help me." And the kids or the husbands were totally willing to help. It's just that they weren't going to divine what the woman needed without her actually telling it to them. And so in one family, the son said, "I will do everything related to food. So I will always help you with anything related to food. I'll even cook dinner a couple of times a week, and I will do all the cleanup from food." And somebody else, one other kid said, "I will help you with everything related to laundry." So the boy was like, "I'm everything about food." And the girl was, "I'm everything about laundry." And they kind of embraced their tasks and helped their moms and completely changed the mom's life, and also was really good for the kids because now they were a unit. They were working together as a community instead of mom being this person who was suffering through every single day. And a lot of the moms said they had to realize that motherhood didn't mean martyrdom.
It's so true. And what happens a lot, and I notice this even in my own practice or even sometimes with myself, we get into this mind reading mindset. This idea, if we're feeling it, then everybody else automatically knows it. And the truth is, that's where communication comes in. Your partner, your kids don't read your mind. You need to say it in a way that resonates to them so that they can show up. And the power of asking and identification is so clear in these stories. Do you have a favorite story out of the 101?
I have several that really spoke to me. One I thought was just really cute, and that is this woman. She was a single mom. She was working so hard, like 3 jobs. She
Oh,
finally found the ability, she found one job that would pay enough so that she could just work one job. She was also trying to go to college, raise her kids. And when her kids got a little older and she could leave the oldest one in charge of the younger ones, she came up with this brilliant idea. And twice a month, she would go out to dinner with her friend Kay. And she would just tell the kids, I'm going out with Kay, and you're on your own tonight. And it wasn't until her kids were adults that one of the kids said, who was this friend of yours, Kay? We never met her. And the woman said, do you know what my middle name is? My middle name is Kay. I was just going out by myself twice a month because I had to get away. She would go out by herself, to the mall, have some food, walk around and just be by herself. But that's what kept her sane. And I thought that was so clever of her. Another woman had an absolute rule that she could not be bothered on Saturdays until 2 p.m. because that was her day when she would go and care for her horse. And that was her horse day. And there were a lot of other people at the stable who that was their sanctuary. Every Saturday morning, they were with their horses. And even if somebody was having a birthday luncheon, if it was on a Saturday, it would start at 2. And I thought that was really good that she laid down the law and she was disciplined about it and her whole family stuck to it. And in her case, that me time was only once a week, but all week long, she knew her horse time was coming on Saturday morning. We had another one, a teacher who was so stressed at school, she got to dance at ballet class every Saturday. So she lived all week long waiting for Saturday when she could go to the ballet studio. So you didn't even have to have me time every single day. You just had to know that this sanctuary was out there, this haven of time waiting for you when you needed it.
what do you think, Amy, in reviewing all of these stories? What do you think makes it so hard for people to carve out me time or to recognize themselves as they are living their lives?
I think that we all somehow think it would be selfish to have me time
Mm-hmm.
instead of recognizing that if you actually maintain your sanity and your good nature, and a good temperament by having me time, you'll actually do better for all of those people you feel so obligated to, or to your job, whatever it is. But I think that women especially, we just have this attitude that we're supposed to serve other people. And we just
Mm-hmm.
have to realize that we won't do a good job serving other people if we don't take care of ourselves. And so that's, I think, a great lesson that people learn. Another thing in this book that I thought was really important, and this is something that is really eye-opening for women. And actually, I didn't learn this until I was in my early 50s. And I put this in another book, and people keep coming up to me and saying, that was the best tip I ever got. So the tip, and it's in this book, is that you are allowed to remove people from your life who don't add value to your life, because part of creating me time is decluttering your calendar. And
Mm-hmm.
part of that is removing from your calendar coffee with that friend who complains all the time.
Yeah.
That volunteer activity that you're not passionate about at all, or you really don't want to do it. You rather do something you're passionate about. That stupid extra work meeting that is not going to help at all, that you really should just put your foot down and take off your calendar. But decluttering the calendar to remove things that don't add value to your life, or to remove people that don't bring joy into your life. That's another lesson that was reinforced for me by the writers in this book, because one woman, she had a friend who was accompanying her to radiation for her breast cancer treatment. And her friend turned out to just be so critical of her and so negative. And there's something about when you go through cancer, you get a lot of clarity about what's important to you, and you just don't have patience anymore for the things that should be removed from your life. Like you got rid of the tumor, you're going to get rid of some other stuff too, right?
Yes.
So she spent a week with this friend who flew in from another state to help her during this week when she was going to radiation. By the end of the week, they weren't even speaking, and they haven't spoken for decades now. She just drove her back to the airport and off she went because her friend was so the opposite of supportive. And so she wrote about that. And I think that we all need that lesson. Like, you are allowed to seize control of your calendar and your social schedule and do what you want to do.
It's really thinking about what is value additive. And there are just so many great chapters in this book that I wrote down, like Mind, Body, Spirit, To Do and You, Accent Help, Self-Discovery. Where can people find you, Amy, and this fantastic book, which is especially important during the pandemic when we really are learning what matters and need to show up for ourselves in order to give to those around us?
So you can go to chickensoup.com, and there you can click on our podcast. You could see this book featured. You'll be able to see the back cover, read what's on the back cover, get some more notes about it. And you can buy the book at Walmart, at Barnes & Noble, at Books A Million, your local independent bookstore, online at Amazon. And of course, it's available as an ebook as well.
You are a pleasure. Thank you for coming back and visiting us, Amy. And so what are you doing today and this week that will help you take control of your me time?
Well, I worked out this morning for an hour. I made that a priority today. Even though I knew I was going to have to, look decent, at least from the waist up, to see you on Zoom and put on makeup, which I'm really bad at, but I did my working out, and I'm actually working really hard right now because my children with their kids are coming in another week. So I've been in quarantine, like deep quarantine, so that I could see my baby grandchildren, but also working super hard so that I can clear 4 days to be with my kids.
Well, I'm sure they are looking forward to it, as we always look forward to having you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll have links up so everybody can get this fantastic book, which is really, it's such an important message. Make me time. And thank you to our Talking Live audience. We'll see you again next week.